Hi, welcome back, or welcome if you're new. My name is Lizzie. Sorry, my piercing got stuck. Today we are going to read another story. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. The Viennese Ghost. It is by Bloody Spaghetti. I'm going to sit here and eat my colorful Twizzlers. It was nighttime. It's really hard being a 21st century cop and eating bird. And the most dangerous part of our job is good old boredom, as there is virtually nothing interesting to do around here, especially during nighttime. I guess us Scots lost our warrior spirit along the way somewhere and became quiet folk like and the rest of them. As during all nights, most workers had gone home early and a very few of us were left. That night, the majority of these few left for the streets. Someone called in to report a bloody corpse they found. That left me and my 4 other guys in the station. Such were our lives. Hardest work around here is finding a thief or a hit and run offender, and so that night, like always, the boredom had started taking its toll on me. I've decided it'd be a good idea to look around in the station archives, hoping something interesting enough to occupy my mind with. Perhaps some unsolved case or something. I started looking around at older cases, the majority of which were closed cases or dropped ones, just laying there for God knows what reason. Eventually, I came across a very old, dusty file. It was an open case, something unsolved that originated from the past few decades, I thought. I pull out the dusty file from the shelf, and once I see the title of the file, I find myself dumbfounded. The title says, "The Case of the Viennese Ghost." What kind of name is that? I think to myself. What's wrong with people lately? I keep thinking. I opened the file, and there was a bunch of yellow, dusty letters written in red ink. Below the letters there are reports surrounding the case. I gave them a quick glance and noticed something strange about these reports. The dates on them are from over a century ago. Something was clearly here. But no matter how wrong or fake this appeared, it appealed to my curious side, and I sat down to read the whole thing. The first report contained the following. We've entered a big house, and right away it was clear that something horrible had transpired there. There is a copious amount of blood smeared on everything, inside and out. Unfortunately, it was all human blood, as during the inspection of the house, we found a corpse in the kitchen and with a cracked skull, most likely the cause of death. The corpse lacked its arms. We later found them on a couch in the living room. Another corpse was found in the bedroom, its head decapitated but reattached via some kind of metallic rod. The worst is yet to come for us, however. We later found a girl alive in the closet. She looks like she's been forced to watch the whole ordeal. If I must give details on the state we found her here, I'm going to say she was unnaturally pale and her eyes were white and beyond what I've known is possible. The girl kept mumbling about a ghost with a freakishly terrifying smile. I personally find it sad that there are such humans in our world who would force a child to watch their parents' death. Chief Inspector J. McKinstry, 6/02/1887. At the moment, I've come to realize that whoever this murder was, they were worryingly smart. The ability to escape such a scene unnoticed is extremely hard. However, what does make the person so, I dare say, talented is the ability to leave the only witness unable to speak and probably recall in any way the whole ordeal. Anyway, I was way too interested in the story, so I just kept on reading the second report. We were called into another murder scene. This time, there were 3 victims found, all men, aged between 30 and 40. It was somewhat surprising to see such a scene since, from what we could gather, the weapon or weapons involved was not a firearm of any sort. The chest of one of these poor souls had been ripped open literally, and we suppose the culprit was trying to make a wing shape out of the person's ribs. Another corpse was in a far worse condition. Its entrails were all outside, the guts hung between the light posts as if ropes, and the corpse itself were suspended in the air via this bloody chain. I suppose it's the worst thing we've ever seen, and the sight made some of my men to throw up. But I can't really blame them. Most people would throw up their meal just due to the smell in the area. It was clear to all of us we were not dealing with a normal, nor most likely even a sane person. The third victim was somehow still alive at the time we arrived, even though his arms were nailed to a post and his lower body was thrown a few feet away from him. When we came, he was unable to speak already. However, we could make out something about a ghastly figure with a diabolical smile and sleepy eyes, and a letter. Indeed, we found a letter left on the floor. The content of this letter state that the culprit is appreciative of our work and hopes we can continue what they have called this game of cat and mouse. The letter was signed with Love the Vienna. And so we've decided to nickname the murderer the Viennese Ghost. Chief Inspector J. McKinstry, 8/2/1887. I kept on reading the third report page, and it did not include too many horrendous details of the third murder. The report stated, "We've left off again to find a couple of mutilated corpses. Seems this time it was a couple whose heads were nailed together with what seems like an extremely rusted spear or weapon. From an initial examination of the documents we found among the belongings of that duo, they were a newlywed couple. The ghost had left us another letter, and its contents were interesting, to say the least. The letter stated, The letter stated that the culprit is excited by this game of cat and mouse, and that this person was to meet me in person as according to their words. I am an interesting creature. The culprit was invited me to meet them, if I am brave enough, at 1 a.m. at the Fleming's mansion on the 6th of September. Signed once again by the phrase with love from Vienna." I must admit, these words, instead of tearing me into giving up the case, fueled me with a sense of duty and oh my goodness. Fueled me with a sense of duty and increased my will to end the endeavors of this sick person. I am going to most definitely end this at the 6th of September. Chief Inspector J. McKinstry, 8/6/1887. By that point, I was already overcome with intrigue and something of an excitement. The suspense became too unbearable to even let myself think about what I've just read a moment ago. So I've read the fourth and final report. Much to my surprise, it recounts the whole encounter between the Viennese Ghost and Chief Inspector McKinstry. It said 6th of September. I sat at the gates of the Fleming's mansion and waited for that person to arrive so we could end this little fairy tale of theirs and finally close off this case. I guess they arrived sometime before 1 a.m. I suppose I was drifting asleep as a loud scream from inside the estate caught me by surprise and jolted me up. I ran into the building itself, but by the time I managed to break in through the door, all the screaming had subsided. Once I entered the house, I was shocked to see a young woman, perhaps in her early 20s, sitting atop of Philip Fleming's back. She was playing with the patriarch's colt between her fingers. I was unsure what to make of this scene until the girl smiled at me. Her smile stretched from ear to ear. Good Lord. Her eyes remained sleepy, and her overall appearance gave off an eerie sensation. At that moment, I realized I'm standing face to face with the devil. Sorry, I thought I saw a spider climbing on my shoulder. I was going to scream. Face to face with the devil, and had killed until now at least 10 people. Around the time I noticed Mr. Fleming's crawling on the floor, forming a blood trail on the floor behind her. And the corpse of their children just lay there. I pulled out my gun and aimed at her, but she remained unfazed, her expression unchanged, and somehow we struck of a conversation. She explained to me that she's playing by her own admission, a twisted Robin Hood in our neighborhood. She said that she is taking out powerful people who are not afraid to use their power and resources in order to increase their already large fortunes, even if it means stealing from the poor. This statement was not untrue, really, as all of the people whom she killed by now were people who fit her description. In spite of her seemingly friendly conversation and her apparent trust towards me, I didn't trust her, not one bit. The calm atmosphere around her and her own peaceful demeanor had given me the confidence to call out my backup without her noticing so. That we could apprehend her. Thus I did, during the somewhat casual chit-chat. I noted my backups who were waiting outside to burst inside and end this whole sad ordeal. My men ran into the house, and in a blink of an eye, she rose up from the corpse she was sitting on and kicked one of the boys right into a wooden support pillar, breaking his back in the progress. Probably the scariest part of this whole thing was when she somehow dodged bullets while pulling out 2 daggers from the sleeves of her garment. She proceeded to slaughter all of my men, sparing me, and when it came to just her and me, I suppose one of the bullets hit the fireplace and caused an explosion, because the last thing I remember is the smoke and fire everywhere. But no, girl. I fully awoke about a week later in the hospital with bandages on my torso. My physical injuries amount to a few not too serious burns, but the mental scars, the ones that will stay with me forever. They were forcing me to withdraw from my duty as a policeman and an officer in Her Majesty's law enforcement system. Hereby I, James Rupert McKintrey, declare my retirement into civilian life. I also recommend Her Majesty's police force to withdraw from this case, as we are not entitled to deal with matters suit for the church, such as the supernatural or mystic. This is clearly a case regarding one of both the aforementioned J. McKintrey, 9/16/1887. Just as I finished reading the final report, my personal cell phone rang. I answered a call, and it was one of the guys in the field. He told me something that almost broke me. He said, "Hey, Alex, there's some weird writing here next to the body. It says, 'With love from Vienna,' written in blood." I stopped paying attention to what he was saying, as I had become overcome by thoughts and emotions. I had hoped it's some copycat. Sorry, these twists are poking my head and making it itchy. They drive me insane sometimes. But then I heard the guy Hoped it's some copycat who's read about the case on the internet. Or something about then. I heard the guy on the phone say, "It's written in blood." You can say that on an instinct. I dropped the case from my hand, realizing I'm holding papers containing text in blood. And I took the case, and the ending of the last report in the case was right in front of my eyes. Such as the supernatural or mystic, this is clearly a case regarding. I tried not to start believing in the supernatural, but how couldn't I? It says they're in black and white that she dodged bullets and almost broke a guy's guy in half by kicking him once. What else would it be if not supernatural? Not to mention the sudden reappearance of the same modus operandi. I probably pronounced that clearly wrong. After over a century, there was something unnatural about this whole thing. I got up to my feet, and that I saw in the window made my blood freeze in its tracks. It felt like time was stopping. In that dorm window stood a silhouette of a woman of average height, dressed in a long dark garment, complete with a hood over her head. Her gaze, it was seemingly tired and sleepy, and her smile, her horrible smile, it looked like it had been stretched into an inhuman size. I mumbled to my phone something along the lines of, "There's some issues with the electricity. I'll call you back later," and turned my phone off. The silhouette remained unmoved, just staring at me through me. I closed my eyes shut tightly for a moment, hoping that this would make the image disappear from my sight. I wish I hadn't done that. Once I opened my eyes, she was inside the room with me. The other guys, they were sleeping, I guess. She started walking towards me. I pulled out my gun, but by that point, she'd simply passed me, and when I turned around, she was gone. Gone forever, you might think. Alex, it was just an imagination, or maybe a stress-induced hallucination. You might think, no, she was gone only for that specific night. Ever since that dang evening, I kept seeing her everywhere. I looked, just looking, mocking, laughing at me silently with her demonic smile. It made me quit my job, and only then I went to the doctor, who funnily enough said that everything is fine with me. Nothing is fine with me. God, a man who's everything okay with wouldn't complain about seeing a woman who is not there at all. A man who's fine wouldn't attempt 3 suicides, but never mind right now, as it's only me and her as I'm writing this. It's the final entry in my diary. As she is mocking me with her smile, I'm going to come out. A way out. Found a way out. No one is going to show up here for the next few days. They took a vacation, but I cannot. There is no escape from the Viennese ghost. She is relentless. I hope that I won't meet her in hell. I hope that these pills will be enough to do the job. Goodbye, cruel world. The aforementioned was read the diary of Alexander Black. Sadly, he did not quite make it, as the pills he chose to consume had finally worked for him that time. But on a more positive note, I truly hope you enjoyed my retelling of the encounter I have had with the fine Scotsmen, James McKinstry and Alexander Black. With love, from Vienna, Elizabethan Hood.